Continuing on in this series of videos about what to check in your superannuation statement, today's video, or this video, is about your investment options within your superannuation statement. Some things to look for that are really important, some things to check in on that are really important, and maybe you might need to make some changes, and this will go through and maybe drive some ideas of changes you may want to make. So let's go through it. Up the top here, at the very top, pinch your screen if you need to see that a little bit better. We've got the high growth option in this particular statement. There is a number of units there, or total units, and a unit price. So each superannuation company will give you the information on the investment option. The investment option, generally if it's a managed fund, will be traded in units or a number of units, and you continue to buy units each time your money goes into your super fund. And so that would be the number of units. The unit price is generally declared each day, and that's relevant to what's happening in the market. And then if we go across here, it gives you the information that this on this statement, the current balance is $440,000, and that equals 100% of the investments within the portfolio in this superannuation fund. If there was alternative investment options, or if this person had chosen 1, 2, 3, or 4, that percentage would look different, and naturally the numbers would also look different. So it gives you the high level information of what investment option you are in, and some information around where it's valued at this year. You could compare the unit price on your this year's statement with last year's statement and things like that. So also for this one, you can see here that how new money is invested. So this is a really good piece of information to let you know that any future contributions or money that goes in, it's going to be invested in this way. And in this particular case, once again, it's into the 100% high growth. Look, maybe if you're getting closer to retirement, an option like a high growth option may not be the appropriate one for you into the future. You may want to split that up and have some money go into cash, which I've done other videos on for pre-retirees and around the things to think about building a cash pool, or a real cash pool, or a bucket of cash as you get closer to retirement. The next section here is a bunch of investment options that are available in this particular superannuation fund. So you can see there's a high growth, a couple of different high growth options, balanced options, conservative options, defensive, and this one has some single sector options such as international shares and Australian shares, property and bonds. Pretty sort of vanilla looking offering from a super fund, or a standard super fund, or an industry fund. And it gives you information on all of those different choices. So by nature, the high growth will have a good proportion, or a high proportion, of the investments in growth assets such as shares, property, international, Australian, and then that will cascade down through those more defensive options as you go down lower. And the more defensive ones will have a higher proportion in things like government bonds, fixed interest type investments, and those sorts of things. But I've done other videos on that, you can check out that. But up here, so you can see it's giving a bit of information around a 10-year return, a 5-year return, a 3-year return, and a 1-year return. Generally speaking, a 10-year return is probably the best guide, because over time, they've demonstrated over a long period of time that they're able to perform in a reasonable way. If you're looking for some comparisons on that, I've done another video also recently on that, and things to consider around that. So maybe jump in and have a look at that one as well. So in summary, what you've got on this screen is a heap of information about where you're invested, where you're going to continue to be invested into the future, and it's starting to paint a picture for you of what your options are in some ways as well. Another good piece of data that most superannuation funds are now putting into their superannuation statements is this page here, where it gives an estimate of how much money you're likely to have in retirement. It's based off some really basic assumptions. It assumes that you're going to retire at 67. It assumes that you're going to stay invested in the same investment option. It assumes that the same amount of contributions are going to go in each year. So whilst it's a nice snapshot, it probably doesn't evolve with changes that are happening in your life. You might have an employment change, which is a higher salary and more money goes in. You might think that $67,000 a year in retirement's not bad, But keep in mind, in 20 years' time, inflation's going to affect that. And you're probably going to need a little bit more in the future, but it's a nice little insight. Another way you can go and maybe plug in a bit higher detail that's more specific to yourself is go and jump on the Money Smart website and have a look at the retirement calculators, and that will point you in the right direction as well as a very basic calculator. Naturally, here in the financial planning business, we get into a lot more detail than that and work through that in much higher detail, navigating the changes that are likely to happen in your life. So I hope that's been a good summary of investments and the type of things that go into a superannuation statement that you should check on, be mindful of, and maybe if you need to make some changes, reach out and seek advice from a financial planner, from myself, or also you can contact your fund if it's just making basic changes as well. I hope that's helped, and jump into the comments and leave any questions, and happy to answer them.